everyone, all Blossoms back, and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Now, over here, as you can see, is my high-end collection from American Overdrive. I've got 7 epics and a legendary, and what if I told you that they're useless? Not all of them, but most of them, right? So, if you told anyone on a surface level that I pulled 7 epics from 14 carbon fibers, they'll immediately say that his luck is broken, his luck is insane, this and that and the third. And it's a bittersweet thing, because yes, I did pull an epic 1 every 2 packs, which is also really goated, but the other thing to realize is that they're useless. All of them are useless. Besides like the Camaro SSX, the rest of these cars are going to be useless. And this kind of bleeds into another situation. A few months ago, I made a video about something that I feel like if Hunches and amend, it will kill Top Drives. And that is their failure to balance the game. And also the failure to make they want to make every car count. But they're not doing a good job at that. So, as you can see from my collection over here, 7 epics from the new update, but I guarantee you that 6 of these cars, minimum at least 5 of these cars will be useless, okay? We're not going to talk about that Camaro SSX toward the left side. That car is going to be useful no matter what, but more on these 6 cars over here. Why are they going to be useless? Well, let's get into it. We all begin with the situation, April 11th, 2023. So literally like a year and a day ago. What was April 11th, 2023 so significant about? It was the introduction of Pacific Coast Highway. And with Pacific Coast Highway came 15 non-prize epics, all of them that you see on the screen over here. The Lincoln Aviator all the way to the Lincoln Continental. Now, throughout the course of a year, I'm going to show you how many of these cars were actually useful in something. So we're going to begin with the first event that preceded this, or the first event that came after this is the GTR LM Nismo, which is World Expo, Pacific Coast Highway, USA, rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive. Now, because of the requirements, a lot of the cars were already not eligible, right? The Lincolns were not eligible, the Fords were not eligible, besides the Mustang Mach-1, and of course your Dodges. Now remember this ended up being such a meme because I tried to get 3. Like there were 3 out of 4 cars I wanted from this pack. I got that Mach-1 like 5 times, and I didn't get a single Dodge. Like I still cannot believe that. It would have been even more painful if I didn't win the GTR LM Nismo, but I did. Now, here's the thing. A lot of these cars, not useful, right? The only cars that you could use were the Mustangs and the 3 Dodges. And many people would argue that the Mustang wasn't even a car that was much of value. You would get the most value getting the higher end stuff with the Challenger SRT and the Challenger ST Hellcat Red-Eye. The Charger SRT Hellcat Red-Eye. And this makes me go to my first point on how I said that if Hutch doesn't amend certain issues, the game will slowly die. You got to make a 66 somewhat attractive, because in a situation like this, people are always going to just try and unpack the higher RQ cars and upgrade the higher RQ cars, right? There's not much of a need to upgrade, to invest in the Mustang, because if you pack the Mustang, you're just like, oh, what's the point of upgrading it? It's the same cost to upgrade the Mustang as it is the Challengers. I'll just open more packs and try and get the Challengers and Chargers instead. So a lot of Mustangs, even though they were eligible for this final, a lot of them weren't even used or upgraded. I know this because I pulled like 5 of them, and I've used 4 of them away. I still have 1 in my garage, and it's still stock. Anyway, so that was the first Tri-Series that came after the update. The second one was Electric Excellence. And under Electric Excellence, the only cars that you were able to use from Pacific Coast Highway were these 2 over here. The Ford F-150 Lightning and the Ford Mustang Mach-E. The only issue is that the majority of the tracks were dry. So there weren't a lot of options to use all-surface tire cars. And if you had to use all-surface tire cars under the Electric Excellence tag, you had better options to use, like the BMW iX and the BMW iX M60. On top of this, more people will own those BMWs because they came in prior updates. People had more time and more packs and more chances to get those cars. So not only do people probably have those cars, or they're more abundant, they're also better. So if you were in a situation where you had all 4 cars, you would probably gravitate to upgrading the 79 first, followed by the 69. Now, there are multiple reasons to why the 65 and 66 will be looked over. Number 1, one is because they just don't perform as well as the higher RQ cars, and number two is because they cost the same to upgrade. So if you have all four of them and they all cost the same to upgrade, most people will go for the RQ79. So although those two American Frontier cars were eligible, I'm gonna say that they ended up useless anyway. You didn't use them in Electric Excellence, really. Now moving on was the Ginetta G56 GT4 final, and the requirements for that was World Expo Road Trip Off-Road and All Surface. Wow, would you look at that? You can actually use a lot of cars for this final. Unfortunately, you wouldn't, because number one, most of the tracks favored, more drag-orientated cars with higher top speeds and lower 0 to 60s. And if you remember, this final I think had like 3 off-road and 2 on-road, but some tracks had 3 on-road and 2 off-road. You were better off using all these higher RQ cars: the Ford Escort, the BMW M60, the X2, and of course the Porsche Cayennes. Honestly, this final, although you could use some new cars, it was really centered around those Porsche Cayennes and Macans. If you didn't have them, chances are you had a way harder chance at winning the G56 GT4. And yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a very similar situation to what I talked about in Electric Excellence. Not only these cars, the Ford and the BMWs and the Audis, not only are they bigger in numbers because they came in previous updates, they're also better cars for players to invest in anyway. So chances are you're going to be upgrading a Ford Escort RS 1700 over like an RQ65 Lincoln Aviator. And from a personal standpoint, let me tell you this straight up. I own an Aviator, Ranger Tremor, Maverick Tremor, F-150 Lightning, Mustang Mach-E, Ford Raptor, and Ford Explorer ST. I don't own the Raptor, Bronco Raptor, but everything else I have. They're all stock in my garage. I've never used them. Now, moving on was the Arash AF10 final. And again, you couldn't use any car besides the Challenger SRT Hellcat Red-Eye. So far, the Challenger SRT Hellcat Red-Eye has been proven useful in 2 Tri-Series, but everything else, not really. Well, the Chargers and the Superstock, that had its time to shine as well for the Nissan final. Now, moving on to the one that preceded this was Immortalizing Carbon, and I really don't remember what preceded. Giselle, preceded is what came after or what came before? Yeah, I forgot. There was preceded, and I think there was succeeded. So I guess succeeded was what came. I think preceded was what came before. So after that, I think I've been using that word in the wrong context. I apologize. But Immortalizing Carbon was what came next, right? And yeah, you really couldn't use anything at all. Like none of the cars were actually eligible. So that's just a pass. Now moving on was the BAC Mono finals. And what you needed to use was World Expo Road Trip Saloons. And again, this was where you could use the Charger for the second time. So now that we've seen, everything that we've seen so far since Pacific Coast Highway, we could use the Challenger twice. It's been useful twice. And we can use the Charger twice. The Charger's been useful twice. Also, because it is saloons, these 3 Lincolns were eligible, right? The Lincoln Continental, MKZ, and Continental. The problem is, though, all the track sets were dry. So why would you use them? You'd be using a performance tire car anyway. So although you could use the Lincolns, you wouldn't want to because it wouldn't make a difference in winning the BAC Mono. So in my opinion, it was useless. Now, I need to stop saying that, succeeding that. The BAC was as seen on YouTube, Porsche GT 198 finals, Racing Royalty, the Audi R8 Team TDI Ultra finals, the Alfa 177, and the Road Most Traveled tag. All 6 special tags and Tri-Series that came after the BAC Mono finals did not include any of the cars or epics from Pacific Coast Highway. So that's like at least 3 months of not needing to use any of these. Next up though, after all this, is the Porsche Spyder Evo, and what you could use was World Expo Road Trip 2020 to 2023. Again, we're in a situation where a lot of cars from the update was eligible, right? You have all these all-surface tire, off-road tire cars, you get the Mustang, you get the Charger, but how many of them were actually useful in the end? Well, the answer is just the Superstock and the Charger, really, because again, we were hit with dry tracks. Nothing that you would want to use an all-surface tire or off-road tire car on. They're not going to be useful for you. The Mustang, again, you're not going to use it. It's a cheaper RQ epic, It's a lower performance epic. It's not going to make as much of a difference as a Challenger Superstock or the Charger. The Charger was one of the cars to get for that final. but you couldn't. And obviously, like, this wasn't all the cars you could use. There were also cars from other updates that you could use, right? So in the end, for, the third time, you could use the Charger, and for the second time, you could use the Super Stock. But for everything else, they still remained redundant. Now, moving on, the next one. Oh my god, that's a lot, because everything else here did not allow the use of Pacific Coast Highway epics. The Pagani Huayra R finals, the Unicorns tag, the Koenigsegg Jesko Attack finals, the Audi EKS finals, the Hyundai Ioniq N Cutting Edge, Mitsubishi Evo S, and Photo Finish all didn't allow it. The Ginetta G58 did. It did allow some cars on Pacific Coast Highway, but none of them made a difference. Zero. So I just have it there with asterisks, but it really didn't make a difference. So for everything that continued, like obviously like Pacific Coast Highway epics did not make a change. And this is like I think 3 to 4 months of content where you couldn't use Pacific Coast Highway epics, right? So and nothing wrong with that, but my point is we've not had a chance to use things like the Lincoln Aviator, the Ranger Tremor, the Maverick Tremor. Then came Nightmare Fuel. Nightmare Fuel allowed a couple more cars. You could use the Ford Bronco Raptor, the Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, and the Charger Hellcat Red Eye. For the fourth time, the Charger became really useful. For the third time, the Challenger SRT Hellcat Wide Body became really useful. And for the first time ever, the Ford Bronco Raptor was actually used in something. Nightmare Fuel, it was useful for like 3 or 4 levels in that special tag challenge. And the date for Nightmare Fuel, it released November 15th, 2023. Now, for you to remember, Pacific Coast Highway came out April 11th, 2023. It took over half a year for one off-road / all-surface tire / standard tire car to be freaking useful for something that actually counted in the game. Whether it's a GT series or legendary prize car, anything of the sort, it took over half a year for one of many off-road all-surface tire cars from an update to actually make a difference. Okay, now moving on with the Porsche Mission R. At this point, I kind of gave up tracking everything because like you had ENW, you had APGP, and those new updates basically focus on all those brand new cars like your Skodas and your Hyundais and everything, right? So the only other time where the Lincolns were actually really useful, where they actually made an impact, a difference, in owning or winning a legendary prize car was for the Porsche Mission R. It was AC Lincoln Radical Skoda. This happened earlier on last month, if you remember, March 7, 2024. And yes, you could use the MKZ Concept, the Continental, and the Continental Concept. And all three of these cars were able to make an impact. Now, the only reason why I have an X on the Continental is because I don't own it. So from a personal experience, I can attest for these two cars. The MKZ and the Continental Concept. These two cars actually did help. If I didn't own them, I don't think I would have the Porsche Mission R. So they actually made a decent impact, right? The MKZ I have fully upgraded. The Continental Concept, literally just 1 star. Just 1 star. That's it, just 1 star. But think about it that way, right? Almost a year later, the MKZ Concept was actually useful in something, right? So, that was nothing. That was Nightmare Fuel. That's an extra tab. So that's another extra tab. Oh, I remember what I was doing. So anyway, forget the Nightmare Fuel on top. What I'm showing you here is how many cars was useful to me since Pacific Coast Highway. So once again, just don't care about the Nightmare Fuel. That was a mistake. You can delete that. Just take a look at the cars over here, right? So for me, I've only found the Challenger Superstock, the Hellcat Red Eye, and the MKZ Concept useful to me. Like I said, the Continental Concept, it could have made a difference, but I own 2 MKZ Concepts as well, so I could have just used 2 of those instead of using my Continental Concept. So really, from a super realistic standpoint, and like I said, I only 1 star this to make a difference, so it's not much. But like from a really realistic standpoint, for over an entire year, out of all the epics from Pacific Coast Highway, only 3 of them made an impact for me, which is the Superstock, the Hellcat, and the MKZ. The only reason why the Hellcat Charger isn't in that list is because I never unpacked it. But yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. Like I said earlier, I own the Mustang, I own the Ranger Tremor, I own the Maverick Tremor, I own the Aviator, the F-150 Lightning, the Mach-E. All of those cars, the Ford Explorer, the F-150, I own the MKZ, and I own the Continental. I own most of the cars in this update, and none of them have made an impact. They've all been sitting in my garage, they've all been rotting in my garage, and I don't want to fuse them away because a part of me is always afraid that it might get useful, but then the other side of me is telling me like it's never going to be useful. It's been over a year and I've never used them, right? And from a more realistic standpoint, or from a personal standpoint, if you owned every single car, these are the ones that would be useful. The Dodges, right? The Chargers and the Challenger, right? Or I mean the Challengers and the Charger. And then like maybe for like 1 to 4 races, some of these Lincoln Saloons might be useful for you if you want to count that. And then for like 1 to 4 races, the Ford Bronco Raptor was also pretty useful for you. But overall, over a year of all the epics released from Pacific Coast Highway, and half of them has remained completely useless. And that's why with American Overdrive, I'm not really, I love the update and all, but I'm not really excited in pulling any of these. I'm not really happy with what I've unpacked. I think that the Buick Wildcat, the Cadillac, the Blazer, the CT4, they're all gonna follow the same route as the Ranger Tremor, the Maverick Tremor, you know, all these cars. If you unpack like the Buick Regal, the Ram 1500, the Cadillac X, okay, the Cadillac XS might be alright because 4-wheel standard, but like the Chevrolet SS, you pull all those cars and like, dude, like it's not, like it's just not a good feeling. Especially if you are an advanced player, it's just not a good feeling. You just know down there in your gut that you're probably never gonna see any action for these cars. There's no point even fully upgrading them for the early hype. There's just no point. People are gonna pull better cars. They're gonna bring you more value, and Hutch just favors performance tire cars anyway. So maybe some people can say that, oh, maybe the Buick Wildcat might be relatively useful. Maybe. But I don't have enough confidence to fully upgrade it right now for no reason. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for today. This is honestly a huge problem with the game. Just 50%. It feels like 50% of the epics is just not worth time, investment, money, anything. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I'm going to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got it, jetbox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got it, jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac. Hold tight all night, cruise to Jackson.